Welcome everyone to another episode of the Longevity Program, and it is a glorious autumn day here in Sydney, Australia. So I thought I'd stand looking out over my backyard and really enjoy this outside weather. So sorry about the exposure, so be it. And every once in a while you might hear some birds, cockatoos, kookaburras. That's just how we roll in Sydney. Anyway, so I thought I'd get into it. And today I'm going to talk about 5 really powerful reasons why I don't eat. Well, regularly anyway. Today I'm going to be talking about the power of fasting and all of the research that I have done in fasting. Now, first and foremost, I will state from the outset, I am not a doctor. And if you're thinking of watching this and thinking I would like to try some fasting, then I absolutely, strongly, 100% recommend that you have a chat to your own local practitioner and you work out whether fasting is right for you. All of that said, as much as I'm not a doctor, I have certainly researched information from not only doctors, but also general papers and blogs and so on. But there are 4 doctors that I've found their research is really, really helpful. And I've written down both their details as well as some of the details that I've learnt from them. And those 4 doctors, and I've mentioned him before, the first one is a guy by the name of Dr. Jason Fung, and he's got a really great book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. The second doctor that I really like to listen to and also read his books is Dr. David Sinclair, an expert on aging, and some really great information comes from Dr. David Sinclair. The next one is a really great YouTuber. He's got some really fascinating YouTube blogs, and his name is Dr. Pradeep Jamnades. Now, I may have murdered that pronunciation, but I find him really interesting. And then finally, Dr. Bradley Bale. There's a really great book that I've just finished called Healthy Heart, Healthy Mind. And that's a really great resource, not just around touching on fasting, but also just general heart health, which I might touch on in another post. But there are 5, as I mentioned, powerful reasons why I fast, and my fasting takes into consideration a number of different ways of fasting. So in fact, this week I completed from Sunday night through to Wednesday night a 3-day fast, and that worked really well for me. And it has a whole lot of benefits that I've touched on in previous posts. I won't go on again, but I also incorporate some intermittent fasting, so 16 hours not eating, 8 hours eating window, and then once a week I normally throw in a 24-hour fast as well. Now, there are 5 powerful reasons from the research that I've identified as to why I want to fast, and I've noted them down here, as always, on my trusty piece of paper, and I'll refer to them. I'll take you through them now, because for me they really work, and I can tell you personally, for myself, every single one of these I feel either I've proven as true for myself, or I've got a strong feeling that it will prove true in time. I'm certainly betting on it. Anyway, let me take you through those 5 reasons. Reason number 1. Fasting, the research says, naturally increases my levels of growth hormone. Now, I think you've probably got to know that through my various posts, I do enjoy exercise, and I've gone anything from full weights through to really strong aerobic work when I was younger with rowing and triathlons and so on, through to this event that I'm training for now, 29029, which is in September in Whistler, Canada. All of this sport requires a lot of my body, and it requires my body to recover in the best way possible. And one really great natural source of recovery, in particular for my muscles, is growth hormone. Now, you could spend a lot of money trying to buy growth hormone that won't necessarily work for you. In fact, there are a whole lot of nasty side effects for those people, in particular weightlifters and bodybuilders. There are some nasty side effects that can come from trying to inject growth hormone, but you can get it naturally, and you can get it through fasting. In fact, I noted down one really interesting study where growth hormone production almost doubled over a 5-day fast naturally. And by the way, I've just got a plane going over the top as well. So we've got all sorts of things happening here. We've got birds, we've got planes, but we'll keep going. So a 5-day fast almost doubled naturally. You can't buy that sort of growth hormone. That's fantastic. Now, the best way to destroy the natural production of your growth hormone is to spike your insulin levels. And the way to spike your insulin levels, naturally, is to eat. And when you eat, your insulin level rises. Now, in most people, the reading suggests that growth hormone is highest in early hours of the morning. And a breakfast is, for many people, especially when they eat a breakfast earlier in the morning, is the perfect time to just completely cut short the production of growth hormone. So for me, if I want my natural production of growth hormone to be at its peak, I just skip breakfast. And so that 16-8 fast, where I finish eating at 8 p.m. normally at night, and I don't eat again until midday the next day, it gives me that perfect window to really naturally produce that growth hormone and give my body the best chance to get that natural recovery and re-strength and rebuilding that it needs. So that's powerful reason number one. Powerful reason number two is that fasting increases my use of energy without lowering my basal metabolic rate, otherwise known as BMR. Now, your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, is the rate at which your body naturally, through just living its natural function, whether that's eating, whether that's sleeping, whether that's moving, all of the things that we do to live, that's your basal metabolic rate. And there are a bunch of studies that have identified that if you are looking to lose weight, now I'm not looking to lose masses of weight. At the start of this longevity program, I felt that I wanted to lose some kilos because you may remember that I had increased in my percentage of body fat and I wanted to bring that back a little bit. But other people might want to lose even more weight. Regardless, if you want to lose weight, a number of people will reduce the amount of calories, watch their calories. And that seems to make sense until you realize that reducing calories, your body's smart and it goes, wait a minute, I'm getting less calories. I will reduce my basal metabolic rate, the rate at which I'm burning and using energy to do my daily living. Whereas fasting, and here's a really interesting study. So one study on fasting every other day for 22 days. So one day of fasting, so a 24-hour fast, and then another day of eating normally, and then another day of fasting. So one study fasting every other day for 22 days, increased fat burning. So anyone who is wanting to lose weight, would you like to increase your fat burning by 58%? So this study showed that fat burning was increased by 58% with no decrease in the basal metabolic rate for those participants. I mean, that's pretty awesome. So powerful reason number two for me for fasting is I'm able to increase my energy use without decreasing my basal metabolic rate. Now, one thing that when I'm talking to people about fasting, if they're saying, how are you going? Oh, why aren't you eating? And I'll say, because I'm fasting in there. And they say, well, aren't you going to eat into your muscle? This is a common observation that is made by those who don't fast. You're going to eat away your muscle. And that's not a great thing because you've been working through your life to build your muscle and so on and so forth. Now, the studies have shown that the body, surprise, surprise, is an incredibly intelligent piece of equipment that we all have at our disposal. And our body is smart enough to realize that if it eats away muscle when we have not been able to eat, and just think about our evolution over time. And in fact, Dr. Jamnades gives a really great analogy or a really great summary where he says, look, and I think I wrote it down here later, but basically, as humans, we have been evolving over 2.5 million years, or about 100,000 generations. Agriculture came into being about 100 to 200 generations ago. And the last 10 generations have been dealing with the industrial age. Now, his point then is you've got no chance whatsoever if you're eating the modern diet that we have of all these ultra-processed foods and high sugars and so on and so forth. Your body has zero chance from an evolutionary point of view of keeping up with that. Therefore, basically eat a whole food diet. Now, I'm going to touch on that later because this whole fasting, this whole not eating thing is part of my nourish, which is eating. And it's really funny that I start off with not eating and fasting, but this is super important, and then I'll come into eating later, and I do believe in a whole foods diet. Now, this is a roundabout way to talk about the importance of what the body is able to do. So the body is able to realize, well, if I eat muscle, then I'm not going to be able to chase that wildebeest that I need to capture and eat, or whatever we decided that we were going to chase at the time of being able to find ourselves some food. So the body has some pretty smart ways, which I'll get to in a moment, that it is able to get its energy. It does not chew into muscle. In fact, the body won't start to move from its fat stores and move into chewing away muscle until roughly, the studies show, you are below about 4% fat. Now that's dangerous. Actually, you're in a point of being unhealthy for so many other reasons as well. To give you a point of indication, marathon runners on average are around about 8% body fat. Now, 8% body fat for a marathon runner, and you know they're fairly lean. I'm sitting probably at the moment somewhere around about the 12% body fat, I'm guessing. I was at 15% at the start of the year. I'm probably back to about 12. I'm nowhere near 8 in a marathon runner, and they are nowhere near 4, which is where your body would start to chew into muscle. So that's a very long way of saying the body is too smart by half, and it's not going to chew into my muscle to find the energy that it needs, and therefore I'm not going to lose a whole lot of muscle because I'm fasting. So they're two really key points about fasting in terms of the powerful reasons why I'm doing it. The third powerful reason is that it lowers insulin and blood sugar levels, which unlocks that access to the fat that I was talking about, and it reduces my risk of insulin resistance and associated type 2 diabetes. Who in their right minds wants to put themselves in a situation where they're going to get diabetes in their older age? If you fast, you give your body a break essentially in creating that insulin, and therefore you make it much more sensitive to when it does create insulin. And in doing so, you're reducing your risk of insulin resistance and you're reducing your risk of type 2 diabetes. Awesome. What a great, that reason alone is a fantastic reason from a longevity point of view, as well as just a general lifestyle point of view, as to why I find fasting works so incredibly well. Okay, we're 3 down, 2 to go. The fourth one is that fasting unlocks a thing called cellular autophagy, which I have talked about in previous posts. And cellular autophagy, in layman's terms, is basically the body saying, oh, I need some energy. I'm going to get the crappy broken down old cells to use, and I will use those things first. It's like a computer defragging, and I will use them, and I will give you, from your old and broken down cells, new energy, new cells, which is so super cool. So that occurs between 18, it starts off from around about 18 hours and goes through and is at its peak at 3 days, which is why I do the 3-day fast, because I'm chasing that cellular autophagy. Now that, as I just mentioned, helps reduce aging by removing aged or damaged cells. Powerful reason number 4. So I've put down on the table 4 super powerful reasons why I find fasting really works for me, based on the science and the reading that I've done so far. One last one to go, and this is the longevity program. This is about living longer, living stronger. So the 5th powerful reason for fasting is that it is a potent anti-inflammatory, and inflammation in the body is, let's go to it, it's a potent, powerful anti-inflammatory, reducing cancer risk. And by the way, it's also got a nice little side effect, which is increasing mental clarity. So for those of you who want to think even more, either at work or at home or wherever it is you're trying to do, when you fast, you actually lose the brain fog as opposed to increase the brain fog, and so you get greater clarity. Now, let's go back to that anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer. One study in a 7-day fast, which I haven't done a 7-day fast yet. In fact, sometime this year, I think I'd like to try a 7-day fast. But one study on a 7-day fast by the University of Boston showed, and I want to read it and make sure that I've got it right here, showed a lifetime reduction of, or a lifetime probability of 70% lower risk of dying of cancer by just going through a 7-day fast, and they recommend doing a 7-day fast once a year. So that is powerful, powerful stuff. 5 powerful reasons why In my research, I've decided that I would like to incorporate fasting into my routine. Fasting is an important part of Nourish, which is one of the 6 pillars in the longevity program. And it's something that I do every single day unless in listening to my body, I feel that I don't want to. Now, case in point, today is a Sunday. I've had a big week and I woke up and I was super hungry and I thought to myself, you know what, my body needs some nourishment, it needs some fuel. I feel like eating. I'm going to eat breakfast. So I had a really lovely whole foods breakfast and I'm not going to be fasting today. Not a problem. See, the great thing about fasting is you can pick it up and lay it down whenever you want, which I really appreciate in this crazy busy life. So I thought I might finish off with a quote from Dr. David Sinclair in a podcast that I was listening to probably a month or two ago. And I loved this quote so much that I wrote it down because I just thought it was so applicable to everything that I'm doing. And I'm going to refer to it, I'm going to read it out because I thought that Dr. Sinclair really just captured it so beautifully here. And he said, and I quote, "If you do the things we all know, i.e. you don't smoke, you eat less, certainly don't become obese, you do some exercise, you eat less often, and you eat the right foods, and you have some friends around, that gives you, wait for it, 14 years of extra life compared to someone who does not do those things." Now, obviously he's averaging it out, and obviously he's talking about general studies and so on and so forth, and every person is individual, blah, 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 blah. But I'm going to take a punt on a 14-year bet. That sounds pretty awesome to me. So there it is. I hope I've provided for all of you a bit of an insight as to why I've incorporated fasting into my routine and why I've incorporated fasting into the Nourish component of the longevity program. And remember, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to live long and live strong. Take care. Till next time.